Welcome to the Lead the Room podcast, where we help those with great ideas and brilliant minds to become amazing leaders and build teams full of purpose, connection, creativity and courage, transforming people's experience of workplaces and leadership. In 2018, we decided that the leadership playbook we saw around us wasn't working for the needs of our teams and our organisations, or frankly for us. So we ripped it up, built a new one, and watched the incredible impact that came from leading in a completely countercultural way. This journey transformed our experience of work, team culture, delivery, and felt so good to us. And our approach has served us and our teams in the good times and the tough times alike. So now we're here to share our stories and experiences with you all so you can become the leader you want to be. Build teams that deliver amazing things in amazing environments and inspire those around you to do the same. You and your leadership are what our workplace and people desperately need. We'll be laughing, crying, and learning together. So let's get started.
Briony, how often have you heard leaders say, "Oh, got too much in your hands, sounds like you just need to delegate more"? Again, I will keep saying it because I just feel like it is so true throughout my career and lots of people's careers, but no leadership training has actually ever given me practical tools on how to delegate.
Yeah, exactly, Lyndsey. And you know as a leader that it's the right thing to do and that you should be doing it because that's what the course has told you, right? It's told you have to give feedback, told you need to delegate, can't do everything yourself. It's told you, create these high performing teams. But what all of these courses lack and what really gets for us frustrated, Lyndsey, is the detail on how do you actually do it? How do you change that mindset when you've come from, particularly when you've been an expert or a specialist or a team member, and then you've just come into a leadership position, changing your mindset around how to actually delegate, how to pass work on, not just doing it all yourself, is actually really difficult. And so I think that's what we want to get into today, isn't it, really? How teaching people some really good tips of how they can delegate, because we all know it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think back, Briony, to the beginning of my career, gosh, I was absolutely the worst at delegation. And I think when I look back at it, I had proper trust issues. And I think, as you said, that example there about going from a team where you were had some subject matter expertise, you had some real skills in that team, to then leading it. That was exactly the position that I was in. So I knew the role that there was the members of my team that were actually doing. So I knew if they were doing it well or not. And I just couldn't step back. So in the early weeks of starting that role, I think because I was obviously getting into my new role and thinking, well, what is this leadership thing? What did my boss actually do all day? What am I expected to do other than the 1,000 meetings in my calendar? Because I didn't have the level of trust, because I wasn't delegating properly, I had a tendency to just want to do everything myself. And that wasn't just my role, the tasks that I needed to do as leader, but it was actually getting into the tasks that my team were meant to be doing. So not only was I doing my job, here I was in the background doing their job. I mean, awful. I mean, for them as members of my team thinking, what is she doing? Get out of my work. Leave me alone. But also there was absolutely no way that I could have the time and the energy to do that. And instead of just taking a step back, which it really took my boss at the time stepping in saying, "Lyndsey, this is not what I've employed you to do. This is not your role." I would have continued to do that. I would have continued to step into territory that wasn't mine, entrust, empower my staff to actually do their jobs, because I didn't have the mindset. I didn't have that proper mindset to say, no, we're a team. This is my role. These are your roles. And I trust that you will do it. It took so much time and a lot of adjustment and practice, Briony, to get to a stage where I thought, actually, yeah, that is your job. Leave you to it. Stop checking on them. I was I was worse than a micromanager. I was like the teacher that checks your work 10 times a day. Awful, absolutely awful.
But so human, Lyndsey. And I think that really speaks to what we were just saying in the intro, doesn't it? this isn't like, it's not just a throwaway sentence, like empower your team, delegate to your team. Like, it speaks to actually the skill that you need to learn as a leader to actually be effective at doing this. It is not good enough to just be like, because you knew that, like, you knew you had to empower them, but still the mindset that you had was holding you back from being able to do it. And even when you recognize the mindset and your boss kind of said that to you, like, stop doing their work, it still took you time, from what I'm hearing, to actually like learn to like reshape your mindset, and also learn to trust your team that when they said they were going to get something done by Friday, they'd get it done by Friday. And that must have been super uncomfortable, actually, that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took time. And again, I didn't have, we speak about all the time about the leadership kind of training and courses you do before you become the leader, and you think you know it all. And I thought I was well prepared, and I wasn't prepared for that mindset. I didn't expect, as a leader, I didn't expect to go in, start my leadership journey with that kind of mindset, and for the impact that to have. So it took a lot of like kind of searching and working with other people to find the actual tools to help me with that. Because I didn't have our products, Briony. If I did, I would have been fine. So
and go on, Lyndsey.
now I was going to ask about your mindset around delegation, Briony. What does that look like and feel like to you?
Well, I think a bit like you, like I feel like I've learned a lot in the last few years, and I think, when now I'm pretty good at creating a culture of empowering my team. When I get stressed out, I can flip back into the old mindset for sure. I mean, which of us, like, we're all human, which of us doesn't? But at least I know what my mindset is. And I think because now I've built up, like, I know how much more impact I can have, how much more impact my team can have, how motivating it is for them to feel really empowered, and to really delegate to them. Now that motivates me to kind of really lean into like changing my mindset and making sure that I truly am empowering them. And I think, like, if I'm going to get stuck when it comes to delegating or to empowering my team, it's definitely around the like, I know how the right way to get this project done kind of mindset. So, I'm a bit of a recovering perfectionist. And as we just talked about on the last episode, I like things to get done. Like, don't like to hang about. Something's going to be done. Let's get it done. And so I think, I've got a lot of experience and I'm pretty competent. And so 9 times out of 10, right, like, I do have a pretty good idea of how to get things done. And so sometimes when I get this wrong, I guess I couple like the desire of my desire to get things done with this mindset, and I can find myself telling my staff what to do rather than being open and to really empowering them to think about the best way for them to get this piece of work done, which actually, if when I'm in a good place and I kind of am more open and tell them, like, this is the outcome you need to reach, get there however you wish within these constraints. Sometimes they do it oftentimes actually they do it better than I could even imagine, because they've brought their own creativity to it and their own innovation, and in ways that I hadn't imagined. And so I think, I've done quite a lot of work to identify my triggers. Like I said, when I'm under pressure or short of time, then I can flip into this, like, just do this, like, rather than being open. And so, I'll really try and make sure, like we talk about kind of planning our week and being intentional, I kind of get ahead of those triggers each week and make sure that I really can stay open to really empowering my team.
Yeah. And I think that point that you just made there, Brian, is so important around, this isn't just about us being overwhelmed as leaders, because obviously we can't do everything ourselves, nor should we be expected to do everything ourselves. That's not our job. But you kind of, the couple of words there about kind of creativity and innovation, like often leaders will say to us, well, how do you create a team like that innovates, and kind of how do you get a creative team? Well, this is and if you were to say to people, well, delegate, or you do hear the words empower your team, that is a bit of a buzzword, isn't it, to be honest? But actually, well, what do we mean by that? And as Brian has just said, like the what it can unlock in terms of that creativity and that innovation, like that is huge, which again leads to joyful, high impact, high performing teams. So it's all, as you can see, all of this is linked. It's not just about doing one of these things. All of our concepts here and our products here at Lead the Room are linked. It is really easy though, Briony, isn't it, to kind of slip back into that mindset. And as you said, like as a recovering perfectionist, it is so tempting sometimes just to be like, oh, but let me just do it. Like, I think my idea is great. I'll just do it. And actually, it doesn't really matter how long you've been kind of practicing this. But knowing what it is that it's going to make you revert back into that mindset. So knowing what that trigger is so key. And to recognize it, naming it, and getting ahead of it before it actually impedes on things like the creativity and innovation of your team is so important. So you've shifted your mindset to one that you firmly believes like the benefits of delegation. So you're like, yeah, I can totally see why I need to be doing this. You trust your team to do a good job. But how do you know who and what to delegate to, Briony? Because it's not just a case of just throwing any old task to anyone in your team, is it?
You're exactly right, Lyndsey, because you're only going to actually get the benefits of delegating and empowering to your team if you delegate to the right person. You are not going to build trust that your team can deliver if you don't delegate to the right person, if people aren't ready, or they're already over capacity, or this task just is not suited to their skill set, right? And so it really is important to make sure that you are delegating to the right person. I think that's the first thing that we kind of call out there. And you've got a bit of a story about that, Lyndsey.
So I definitely think at one point in my career, I was someone that people were like, oh, we'll just give it to Lyndsey. Like, she's so amenable. She'll say yes. Like, she'll get it done. It'll be fine. Right. No longer. Ruthless Lyndsey's here, isn't she? But actually, if the how that task was delegated at the time was completely wrong. And in terms of like the thought that was put into it, because I was absolutely the wrong person for the task. I didn't have the experience or the skills to do the task justice. And I did think at the time, why have I been asked to do this? Is this an opportunity for me? Well, if it was, then I probably needed a little bit more guidance and help around the opportunity. But instead of asking kind of why I'd been chosen to do it, kind of explaining my feelings that I didn't really sure I was the right person to do it, in that situation at the time, whether it was kind of, I felt like I didn't have the confidence or, the ability to question it, I didn't question it and I just got on with it. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. I'll just kind of, it'll be absolutely fine. But as kind of the days, the weeks went on, I just felt incredibly stressed. I could feel myself getting upset, frustrated, and angry actually at myself. I was like, I can't do this. And again, as opposed to going back and saying, look, I'm not really sure what I'm meant to be doing or what is expected of me. I was projecting the anger onto myself and that I'm a failure. I can't do this. They thought I could do this, but I can't. So it was making me feel really quite terrible in my own abilities. But I didn't feel like I could ask for help. I felt embarrassed because I thought, oh, well, they obviously think I can do this. But I think through just kind of using some friends and colleagues at work around me, I did produce the piece of work. It was pretty meh at best. And it wasn't something that I was proud of. And never forget, Briony, like when I actually submitted the piece of work, I got like little to no feedback on what I'd actually produced. I still to this day, and we're talking, this was years ago, I still don't know if that is actually what they wanted. And to be honest, there was a big part of me that was like, oh, thank God they haven't given any feedback, because like I didn't want to hear the feedback. If it was awful, just put it in the bin and let's forget about that situation. But I then just felt like, okay, but you asked me to do something for you. I did it. I got so stressed doing it. And now there's just nothing. Like, and again, I just think if we are asking things of people, we are delegating, we ought to have, it is absolutely incumbent upon us to be making sure it's the right people who are going to get the most about it. It's not going to make them feel sad, stressed, vulnerable, embarrassed, all of these things. Like that is not an okay situation to be on. And that is an example of when a task is absolutely delegated to the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly. Because just what you were saying there, like there's nothing empowering about feeling completely helpless in a situation, or like you're the wrong person, or like anxious about the task. Like that doesn't serve you or your team, right? For your team to be feeling that way when you've been delegated something. So really taking time to think about the right person, is key. And so we've got a couple of ways to help you think about that. And the first one is to think about task-centric delegation. And so this is about, thinking of some questions to guide you, thinking through who you're going to delegate a piece of work through from a task perspective. So the first thing is interest. Has anyone in your team specifically, said they have interest in this area or this project? Because if they have, then they might be a good person to delegate it to, right? Who has demonstrated curiosity or passion for this type of work? That's another really great question to think through. Because again, if they're interested to learn more, then this could be a great task for them. The second thing to think about is availability and capacity. Really making sure that the person you're thinking of delegating to actually will be able to do it. Like, do they have enough bandwidth? Are they already maxed out? Or is delegating this thing going to compromise on their delivery of existing projects? Maybe for shorter term projects or tasks, you might choose someone who's available like right away. For longer term projects, you might want to think about more of like a strategic fit or their own development opportunities. So interest, availability and capacity. And then the third one is around team dynamics and collaboration needs. For a lot of these tasks, that might require collaboration, really consider how you're going to pair team members together with complementary strengths, people who are going to work together well. Even for less experienced staff, you're going to think about considering delegating things that's going to allow them to work alongside a more experienced member of the team. And then they're both going to grow, right? The less experienced person's going to learn from the more experienced person, and the more experienced person is going to learn how to mentor, teach, and grow another member of the team. And that peer mentorship is just really powerful. And there's a couple of questions to kind of consider here. The first one is there a combination of team members that could collectively handle this task more effectively? And the second question is, who could benefit from working together and kind of those cross-functional skills that they have?
Absolutely. And then the final thing that we want to kind of share on today's podcast is around kind of assessing risk and complexity of the task. Because again, if we go back to that mindset, like, I don't know about you, Briony, but sometimes like delegating to people definitely felt like a risk because it's your team, you're kind of accountable responsibility. Like, it's a bit of a risk delegating it to this person. Well, take time to assess the risk. So for tasks with kind of high stakes or need a lot of kind of focused attention, you may want to delegate to more experienced staff, right? So these high stakes things, don't be giving it to someone that's just joined your team, because that's not fair. And they will end up feeling like, I don't want to be part of this team. This is not for me. So think about maybe starting with some of the lower risk tasks. Use them as an opportunity to train and develop those kind of newer members of the team, and build that courage and that confidence in them. It's such a great way to do that. If the task is complex, consider it kind of maybe breaking it down into phases and assigning the initial kind of lower risk phases to less experienced staff, and gradually increasing the responsibility, because again, over time, that will make them feel like, gosh, I don't just get the low stake stuff, like I'm actually also getting to do some of the more kind of punchy, riskier stuff too. And you feel like you're then much more included in the team. So again, a couple of questions to consider when you are thinking about delegating these tasks. What's the impact if the task is not done well? Well, that person that delegated that to me did not think that through. So do think like, okay, what is the impact? Like, is it high impact, low impact? Is it a good learning opportunity? And can this be used as a learning opportunity without significant risk to the team or the organisation? And they are really wonderful things to start with, aren't they, Briony? In actually giving that confidence for yourself. And they're really good ways as a leader yourself to be like, gain your mindset, to help your mindset on delegating. She'll be like, okay, I can do this. And it works and it feels good. And now I can trust people with higher things, and your mindset shifts.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that's what you want from this process, right? Is you want to get the right person for the task who's going to be like, I've just got an amazing opportunity. I'm going to learn and grow. It's going to help me with my learning goals. I'm going to enjoy working with this person. I'm going to enjoy working with the stakeholders on this project. They're going to feel massively motivated. And in that, you're going to get something done that's really great, right? And I think, when you think back to that task that you were delegated, like you didn't even really care about the project, Lyndsey, did you? Like you started off thinking
No
like, well,
passion.
why is it even me?
Yeah.
And so, no passion or curiosity in the topic. And if you think like, actually, there probably was someone in your team who would have loved that opportunity, and
Yeah.
they would have been much more motivated, and they would have relished the opportunity to have it delegated to them, and would have like just run with it, right?
Yeah.
So I think those kind of those 4 areas to think through from this week,
Yeah.
um, interest, availability and capacity, team dynamics, and assessing the risk are 4 really good sort of places to start when you're thinking about delegating and empowering to your team. And if you want to know even more about how you can grow a culture of empowerment in your team, starting with you and your mindset, and then thinking through some really practical tips and worked examples of how you can delegate these tasks, worksheets, all of that kind of stuff, and a podcast, we've got go over to our Learning Lab on our website, and you can pick up our Learning Lab challenge on how to do that there.
I don't know about you, Briony, but I often think like, if you were to see like on a course, oh, we're going to do a topic on delegation empowerment,
Yeah.
it sounds a bit dry, doesn't it? Like you think,
Yeah.
oh, delegation, like it seems like quite processy, I think. It sounds
Yeah.
like, oh, how to delegate. But actually, and hopefully what you've maybe heard from Brian and I today, the feeling that it creates is actually an amazing, like it can fuel that passion, that creativity, that innovation. And done properly, it feels amazing. So for what is quite a dry kind of process thing on the surface, actually it creates and ignites a feeling in your team that is really quite special when it's done properly.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm going to just skip ahead actually to the walk the week, right,
Yeah,
and start
sure.
with my celebrate, because this is all about empowerment. Like when I joined my team as the leader, like maybe 2.5 years ago, they did not feel confident in their roles. They didn't really know what needed to be done, and they were like asking a lot of very valid questions of me because nobody had really explained to them like what their jobs were, how to be impactful. We've done a lot of work together as a team on this over the last couple of years. And one of the things that I think is the biggest shift is how much they all now feel empowered to do their jobs, like to take the lead. Quite often they'll say to me now, "Oh, no, I will lead on that." Like they're like, no, I'm not even waiting for you to delegate to me. I'm just taking it, Bryony. And I feel great because I'm like, I know that you're going to do an amazing job. And I love that they've now got the confidence to say that and to really like go for it and own things and bring their creativity to each task, which they really do. And so I think you're quite right, Lyndsey. Like, yeah, of course, it does sound like you're right. It does sound a bit dry, like, follow this process map and then
Yeah.
you'll be a master at delegation. But it's not that. Like, I think how it's such a gift to be part of a team where you feel empowered. And I just feel like we have all learned so much from each other in that process of creating that culture of empowerment. So I really, if that's what you want in your team, I really would encourage people to go and check out our Learning Lab challenge this week. So that's my celebrate, is celebrating my team and their, how they're taking the lead on things.
Amazing. So what have you been learning this week, Bryony?
So this week I've been really learning about, like, I've got a new colleague who is like in a completely different time zone, and his role is like kind of the other half of my role. And so I've been really kind of learning and being really thoughtful about how I can really build a strong connection with him. He seems really great, but how can I really support him? What does he need from me? And how are we going to make it work in the like time zone differences and that kind of thing? So I've been thinking a lot about that actually, and a lot of that is about just like spending the first couple of chats that we've got, like actually just understanding like how do we like to work, what annoys us, like what our values are, and that kind of stuff. Like all comes back to values, doesn't it, Lyndsey?
Yeah,
But
it
actually, I
does.
think investing this time up front to have those conversations is going to really help us in the long run, especially given the different time zone that we're in.
Nice. Love that. And I'm sure that resonate with lots of people. What about growing, Bryony? A growth area this week?
So I think this week I've been thinking a bit about like what you can control and what you can influence and letting things go. And obviously, if people have been listening for a while, you all know I'm going to find that hard. Like to be in control of things, can't always be in control of everything, Bryony. And so, like, really thinking about, well, just like, if you can't control it and you can't, just let them. Like, people want to say like and take the credit for all of the work that is done by your team, which is something that's happened this week. Let them, because the majority of people who work with me know that that's my work, right? And I can get myself all worked up about this, this thing that has happened, and this person is taking the credit for my thing, or I can just let them and rise above and know that really the majority of people know that it's my work, rather than descending to their level and replying all or whatever. I don't know what I was thinking I was going to do, and be like, actually, this was my work, and being petty. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to just like, it's not easy, but I'm trying to just like let them.
Yeah, I think that is such an important one, and like I can definitely feel myself in that situation that you just described, and sometimes you just have to say no, let it go. Otherwise, like we say, we get hung up on so much. But I love it. Also your team, I just love your team. Like, I want to be in your team. Every time you kind of share an example, I'm like, I want to be in the team. Really jealous.
You'd be welcome anytime, Lyndsey.
Anytime,
You would. You would. But it
Aw.
is a great team. They are really epic.
Love it.
What about you, Lyndsey? What's your walk of the week?
So this week, celebrating. So actually, I witnessed a team that works kind of closely alongside us. And so before I kind of explain what happened, I think there's a real kind of power. So Brian and I talk a lot on Lead the Room about our leadership style and how it's being countercultural in our organization. And whilst it may, to begin with, if you're going to take this type of approach, and we hope you do, it may feel countercultural, and that does feel hard. But someone has to go first, right? And Brian and I were the people that went first. And watching then other people do it feels flipping amazing, right? Yeah. So there's a team that I work with quite closely. And we don't do shared projects or anything, but we do have quite a bit of exposure to one another. And I know they have been watching us as a team and thinking, they look like they're doing really well. They look like they're having quite a lot of fun. They look like they can obviously see that it works, right? And they've asked a couple of questions. They've been kind of curious, but they haven't outwardly said, like, what do you do as a team to make it work? Like, what are you doing? But even just this last week, I have noticed, whether it's a little bit of osmosis or they're kind of intentionally trying to mirror some of the things that we do, they're doing it. And I have noticed a massive shift in their kind of in how they operate as a team. And they didn't say anything, they didn't say they'd been doing anything different, but I just took the time to just send a little email just to say, I don't know what you're doing differently within your team, but something has changed, and you seem to be such a great team to be around, and you look happy. Like, the results that I'm hearing that are coming out in meetings are brilliant. So whatever you're doing, keep at it. And they replied to say, yeah, we have kind of changed things up, and we have kind of been looking at your team. And so again, now it's opened the conversation to be like, okay, well, here's what we could help you with. This is what works for us, might not work for you as a team, but like, experiment with these things. And to see that happening has just been so wonderful.
And I love that you just like even sent that email to them to like call it out and to celebrate them, because I think that stuff, again, that is so countercultural. Like, how often have you, like, all of you listeners, how often you've got an email like celebrating you and what you're doing like that? Like, probably rarely. And so I think even the act of doing that and saying like, go you, like, keep going, this is awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you do something with emails at the end of every week, don't you, Briony? That I love, in terms of people that have had quite an impact on you that week. I love that.
Yeah, my appreciation emails. Yeah, I send them like to 3 people every week, people who've made the biggest impact in my week. And because again, it's just like, it's part of my like countercultural like leadership practice. And I always get a kick out of doing it.
I haven't received one for a while, just saying.
Is
that my daily
Right, Lizzie, but listen, I can't send you one next week now because it's going to be too obvious.
Well,
so
yeah.
just
Okay.
Just, you have to wait. Keep being awesome. keep being awesome, and you'll have to, like, you know, you'll see when you get one. All right.
Learning. So actually, one of the things, and I think Briony spoke about before, about her kind of quite interest in AI, and that's definitely something that I think has, in probably every organisation that our listeners work in, it will be a conversation. Some people will be deep in it, others will be like, what the actual, and it's something that I do like embrace at home, because I just now feel like ChatGPT is just my friend, and I just love him, her, I don't know, them. But in terms of like, sometimes I struggle at work to be like, how is this going, how can I implement this, how could I use this to kind of actually make a difference in a meaningful way, not just feel like I'm Googling stuff and taking shortcuts. Like, I want it to be meaningful. So been trying to do a little bit of more learning around that, and definitely inspired by Briony and her learning on this. Not quite at your level yet. But I just want it to be, sometimes I think, and particularly as like a leader of a team, you can feel like I should be at the forefront of this stuff. I should know what to do, because everyone's looking at me going, so how are we implementing AI, Lyndsey, in our work? And you're like, again, use it as a kind of learning opportunity to be like, well, how could we? Let's start a conversation. Everyone's going to have like different kind of levels of knowledge. Like, you do not have to be the expert in everything. And I think that links to my kind of growth one. I have definitely found myself in an area of our organisation lately where there's so much that I don't know, and there's so much to learn. And it's felt uncomfortable, to be honest, in terms of, like, I do like to know. I'm somebody that actually can't just like skim lots of things and just feel I'm okay with that. I need to have like a decent bit of knowledge on a couple of things to feel kind of comfort level. And so I've been trying to grow that comfort of, it's okay. Like, you know enough to be able to ask the right questions, ask the right follow-on questions, direct the right people, and go to the experts who are paid to know that stuff. So I think growing that kind of level of comfort of, I actually don't feel comfortable, but I need to feel comfortable. So let's just go with it. Because that's not something that comes naturally to me, I don't think. So that's this week.
Yeah, I think but it's really important, is it? Because when you get like to a certain level in your career, like, you actually, the amount of new things that you take on, I think, actually like slows down quite a bit. And if you're not intentionally stretching yourself and growing and learning, you kind of lose touch with that out of the comfort zone feeling, don't you? That actually more junior staff are having all the time, and then you kind of lose a bit of empathy for them in terms of like, come on, why are you making such a big deal about this for? Like, just get on with it. When actually you can normalize it because you've been doing it for like years. So I actually think it's really important for like all leaders to really intentionally prioritize growth and learning and being out of the comfort zone, because it reminds you that like how hard it actually feels, how, like you said, uncomfortable, like how uncomfortable it is. And I think we could all do with embracing that and just recognizing that from time to time.
Yeah, definitely. Good. Well, thank you so much for joining in this week. We really hope we've given you some really good practical tips there in terms of how to delegate. So really think about, before you give that task, like, who are you giving it to, what this task you're giving. And like Briony say, like, all of our tips and pieces of advice and the planning and the reflection, this needs only to take about 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, when you're doing these things. We're not saying spend hours and hours planning this. And then it just becomes a practice. It becomes a habit that you do every day in your leadership when you're looking for opportunities to delegate and empower your team. And it will feel amazing once you've done it properly, we promise.
Yeah, so I hope you've loved the podcast. Like Lyndsey said, we've got our podcast reflection sheets over on our blog, on our website. And if you want to know even more about how to create that culture of empowerment in your team, then go to the Learning Lab on the website and you can pick up our guide there. But until then, until next week, keep going with your experimentation and let us know how you get on with empowering your team over on Instagram or on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear how you do.
And send that appreciation email. Bryony.
Yeah, love. All right, look, Lyndsey, stop being so needy. I'm not going to send you one this week now, okay? Maybe next week. See you next week, listeners.
Bye. A team full of purpose and results, people who are buzzing with ideas and the courage to try them out, and a place where you and the team can't wait for the weekly meeting. By listening to this episode, you are building your skills to become the leader that can make all of this and more happen. But we want to hear from you. Tag us in your stories, send us a DM about your walk the week on Instagram so we can learn what's resonating with you most. And if you're up for helping us out and taking a moment to rate and review the podcast, send us a screenshot to hello@leadtheroom.co.uk so we can send you our 90-day leadership refresh as a thank you. Keep experimenting, and we can't wait to see you next week.